Hey, in this section, we're going to talk about the dreaded objections. And, you know, many salespeople hate objections, but if you do the work, if you follow the steps I'm going to show you and then practice, drill, and rehearse, you'll look forward to objections because it's how you help the most people. Remember, we talked about an average sale you have to ask 5 times. This is where you get what it takes to ask 5 times. Now, let's take a look at the steps first. The first step in overcoming objections is to bypass the objection. Now, what you do in this section is you acknowledge the objection like you heard it, but you sort of acknowledge it and move on. Let me give you an example. Let's say I'm going for the close, I'll get the paperwork started, and the customer says, "Hold it, pal, that's a lot of money for what you're selling." Now, some salespeople would just pack up right there. "Yeah, it is, I know. You must have called one of those internet companies or whatever." But it would be easy to look at them and say, "Mr. Brown, you are absolutely correct. It is a serious investment. But I know you're going to find, like many others, that it's a great investment, an investment you'll be proud of for many, many years to come. I'll get the paperwork started." Now, you didn't offer him a discount, you just acknowledged what he said, because what he said was, "It's a lot of money." It wasn't, "I don't want it." Now, in about 40% of the cases, you get to carry on. It'll never come up again, because it wasn't an objection, it was just a way to slow you down. In about 60% of the cases, the customer will say, "Hey, maybe you didn't hear me. I said it's too much money." Now it's an objection, which we'll cover in a minute how to handle that. But I hope you'll try bypassing. The next section is make sure you understand the objection before you move on. Now, many times we don't know what the customer means, but we can't wait to move on. So you want to ask, like if a couple says it's too much, do they mean too much down payment, too much total payment, too much interest, too much monthly payment? You got to find out, or you're going to end up answering the wrong objection. Now, how do you find out? Hey, you're not a mind reader. You got to ask. So you just ask them, when you say that, what do you mean? Is it the down payment, the interest, the monthly payment? And they'll tell you, and then you proceed from there. Now, the third step, we've got bypass, understand. The third step is make sure you ask if there's anything else. If you don't ask if there's anything else, the couple may keep throwing up objections. So you always say, okay, other than the money, is there anything else keeping us from doing business? And when they say, nope, that's it, if it wasn't for that, we'd be going ahead. That's when you know if you can share something to solve that problem, you've got a sale. Now, how do you do that, you may ask, after you followed those steps? Well, most salespeople never practice objections, even though they know they're going to get them. They act surprised, like, "Can you believe it? That guy said he had to think it over." Well, they're all going to say something. Very few people buy without an objection. So here's what I'm going to recommend that you do is start an objection binder. This is where you have a brand new page for every objection you cannot overcome. So you might have one for "we got to think it over," one for "it's too much money," one with "we got to check with our bank," and then write down every way you can think of on that page to solve that objection. Now, when you've written down the ones you know, call your boss and ask him. Hey, email us. We'll be glad to send you some. You get unlimited support as part of investing in this ebook. Ask your friends who are in sales how they handle it, until you've got 15 or 20 ways to handle every objection that you could possibly face. Now, once you have that, you practice, drill, and rehearse, and then you use them. And if they work and they work for you and you feel comfortable, you keep them. If you don't like them or they don't work after 10 or 12 tries, scratch them and move on to something else. But always have 10 to 20 ways to overcome each objection. Now, imagine how comfortable you'll be when the couple says, "Hey, we're not going ahead tonight. We got to check with our Uncle Louie." If you could say to yourself, "I'm going to start with number 3. And if that doesn't work, you go, "Okay, here comes number 9. If you could ask them to buy 15 to 20 times because you were prepared, imagine how much further ahead you would be. I hope you'll give that a try. Now, let's go on to some actual examples. All right, the first example I want to take a look at is we have to think it over. Now, Many salespeople just give up with that. But let me give you one example you might not have thought of. If you sell door to door or you sell in people's homes, remember they get the 3-day right of rescission from the state in most states. So instead of hating that law and wishing they'd take it back, why don't you use it? When they say we have to think it over, you can say, I agree that you should think it over, but tell you what, I'm here now, we've spent a lot of time coming to a conclusion, and I've made you that special offer for people that invest the first night. Let's do up the paperwork. The state gives you 3 days to think it over. And would 3 days be enough time? Okay, well, let's do the paperwork now. If you think it over in 3 days and you decide to go ahead, we don't have to take up any more of your time. If you decide not to go ahead, the state gives you the right anyway. So let's do the smart thing. I'll get the paperwork started now. Head down, start writing. You might like that, you might not like that. Or let's say you work in an area where there is no state law, or you don't sell door to door. Well, you can use the same thing. You say, I understand, and I'd like you to think it over too. How many days do you want to think it over? Now, when you ask that, they think you're going to come back in that many days. So they'll say, 5 days will do it. Say, tell you what, while I'm here, let's finish the paperwork. I'm going to put on here, right here, customer will think over until May 30th, and can cancel by signing here, and you draw a little line, full deposit refund. Now, the reason you draw the little line is they have to sign it. Now, they're going to call you at 3 in the morning and leave a message on your answering machine that says, start it over, it's not you, it's me, we're not going ahead. But if they have to sign it, you get to come back out and talk to them again. So there's a way to use I have to think it over and still get the sale. Okay, let's take a look now at I have to check with my bank. Now again, a lot of salespeople when they hear that say, okay, I understand, I'll be back Tuesday. But what if you could say, no problem, sir, we're glad you're going to check with your bank. Now what most people do is they look at our financing, they apply for our financing, they find out what the absolute best deal we can offer is, then they go to their bank and make sure their bank either matches it or beats it. That way you're guaranteed to get the best deal you can, either from your bank or for us. So I'll get the paperwork started. I'm going to write down here, customer may choose their financing or our financing. So there you have another example. Now, as you can see, it's very important that all this, once you start to close and you have objections, you write on the paper everything. You don't allow anything to stop the deal from going ahead. Like, you don't say, okay, I'll check on that and get back to you. You say, customer may choose, and so on. So objections are not hard at all. If you have a list of 15 or 20 and you practice, drill, and rehearse, and if you really believe you're helping the customer. So I hope you'll give those a try. I know they'll help you sell more and earn more.